My wife grabbed the mic at the company New Year's party and put me up for auction. Starting price $50. She didn't know I was standing right behind her, he said calmly. Then he walked out and never came back. What's going on, everybody? It's Qlay. And I need you to buckle up for this one because this story is something else. A man walks into his company's New Year's Eve party after changing a flat tire on the side of the road. Sweaty, tired, shirt wrinkled, and the first thing he hears is his own wife on stage with a microphone auctioning him off like he's a clearance item at a garage sale. Starting price $50. In front of his boss, his co-workers, people he's got to see every single Monday morning for the rest of his career. And instead of losing it, this man sat down at an empty table, looked her dead in the eyes, and made a decision that changed everything. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button because this channel was literally built for stories like this. He kicks it off like this. I, 51 million, never imagined that the worst night of my life would end up being the best thing that ever happened to me. That sounds like something you'd read on a motivational poster in a dentist's office, I know. But it's true. And it started when I walked into the main hall of my company's New Year's Eve party and heard my wife Rosalia on stage with a microphone saying words that I can still hear in my head if I close my eyes. Who wants to spend the night with my ugly old husband and listen to him snore? Starting price $50. Come on, ladies, don't be shy. He's a bargain. The whole room was laughing. I mean everybody. Executives in expensive suits doubled over. Secretaries covering their mouths. People clapping like it was the funniest bit they'd ever seen at a company event. And I was just standing there at the entrance in my wrinkled shirt because I'd spent the last 40 minutes on the shoulder of the highway changing a flat tire by myself in the dark. Sweaty. Grease on my hands. Already running late. And now this. She hadn't seen me come in yet. She was up there holding that microphone with one hand, gesturing with the other like she was hosting some kind of game show. My name is Sebastian. I'm 51. I wear glasses to read. Lost most of my hair before I turned 40. I've got a few extra pounds. Not as many as Rosalia always claimed, but enough. I work as an administrative manager at a real estate development company. Decent salary, nothing crazy. I'm the kind of guy most people look right through without noticing. And for 23 years, I was invisible, even to my own wife. But that night, for the first time in over 2 decades, I became the center of attention in the worst possible way. I should back up, though. None of this makes sense without context. I arrived late to the party because of the tire situation. Rosalia had insisted on separate cars because she wanted to stay late, and I, in her words, always got tired early like a boring old man. I told her that was fine. There was never a problem with anything she decided. That's how our marriage worked. She decided. I accepted. She talked. I listened. She shined, and I just disappeared into the background. When I got to the hotel, it was almost 11. The hall was decorated with gold and silver lights, big balloons hanging from the ceiling, tables covered in food, music going, people laughing. The whole thing looked expensive and festive and perfect. Perfect for everybody except me. I came in through the side door because I didn't want to make a scene. Looked for Rosalia. Found her immediately. Not by seeing her, but by hearing her. She was up on the little stage they'd set up for the DJ, mic in hand, going off at the top of her lungs. Come on, friends. $50 for my husband. I'm practically giving him away. He's responsible. Pays bills on time. Doesn't bother much. He does snore like a bear and has no hair. But hey, nobody's perfect. More laughing. Someone yelled out, "I'll give you 25. And the whole place lost it again. Rosalia played along. 25? What an insult. This man is worth at least 30. My hands started trembling. My stomach twisted into a knot. Part of me wanted to turn around and walk right back out. Part of me wanted to rush the stage and grab that mic out of her hand. But my legs wouldn't move. I just stood there watching my wife turn me into a joke in front of every person I worked with. My boss, Alonzo, was sitting at a table near the front, with this tight expression on his face, like he wasn't sure if he should laugh or step in. And then something happened that I didn't expect. In the middle of all that humiliation, all that laughter, and all those eyes and all those people treating me like I was less than nothing, I felt something shift inside. It wasn't anger, wasn't sadness. It was this cold, sharp clarity that just sliced through everything else like a blade. I saw Rosalia up on that stage, fully aware of what she was doing, enjoying every second of attention. I saw the people laughing at me, and for the first time in 23 years, I asked myself a real question. How did I get here? When did I stop mattering? And more importantly, why was I still standing in this doorway? Hold on. Stop. I need to highlight something real quick. She's not making these jokes in a private conversation or being a little too honest with her friends after a long day. She is on a stage, with a microphone, in front of this man's entire company, his boss, his colleagues, people he has to sit in meetings with on Monday. And she's up there doing a full stand-up routine about how ugly and boring he is. This isn't a joke that went too far. This is someone who genuinely does not respect the person she's married to and doesn't care who knows it. And the scariest part? She's not even nervous about it. She's having fun. Okay, back to it. To understand how I ended up standing in that doorway watching my wife auction me off like a used couch, I gotta take you back, way back. Because I wasn't always this guy. There was a time when I had plans. When I actually believed my life was gonna be something. I met Rosalia when I was 28. I was working as a junior architect at a small firm. Didn't earn much, but I loved what I did. I'd stay up entire nights working on blueprints, designing buildings that only existed in my head, but that I was sure, absolutely sure, would become real someday. I had a whole notebook full of ideas. Wanted to specialize in sustainable housing, stuff that combined function with beauty. Sounds naive now, I know, but back then it felt possible. Rosalia came into my life like a storm you don't see on the radar. Met her at a mutual friend's wedding. She was wearing this emerald green dress that fit her like it was custom made. Dark hair, big smile, and this way of talking that made you feel like you were the most interesting person in the room. She walked up to me. I was sitting at a back table trying not to look awkward in a borrowed suit, and said, "Do you always hide at parties, or only when there's pretty people around?" I laughed. I blushed, and I fell for her completely. I should mention, there was this guy at the wedding doing magic tricks during the reception, and he was genuinely terrible. He kept dropping cards, and at one point a dove flew out of his jacket and landed on the bride's mom. Nobody said anything. It was amazing. Anyway, first few months were magic. Rosalia made me feel like I mattered. She'd introduce me to her friends as my architect. She'd come to my apartment and look at my drawings and tell me I'd be famous someday. I wanted to believe her because when I was with her, I felt like I could do anything. We got married a year later. Simple wedding, no money, but I was happy. She talked about kids, a big house, a studio where I could work. I worked more hours, took extra projects, saved every penny, wanted to give her everything she asked for. But then things started shifting. Small stuff at first. Comments about my clothes. "You're going out in that? You look like an insurance salesman." Comments about my job. "Still at that little firm? I thought you'd have moved up by now." Comments about my friends. Thomas, my best friend from college. She said he had no ambition, and she didn't want me settling like him. So I changed my shirt, worked harder, saw Thomas less, because I thought that's what good husbands did. Adapt. Make your partner happy. When Rosalia got pregnant, I thought everything finally made sense. We were going to be parents. I left the architecture firm and took a position as admin manager at a real estate development company. Triple the pay. Wasn't what I loved, but it was the responsible move, the grown-up move. She hugged me and said, "This is temporary. When the baby's born and we're stable, you'll go back to architecture." I believed her, but the baby was never born. She lost the pregnancy at 4 months. It was devastating. We cried together, promised we'd try again. But months passed and she never wanted to talk about it. Every time I brought up trying again, she'd shut it down. "I'm not ready. There's time." So I waited, because that's what I did. I waited. Years passed in this weird blur. One day I was 30 with plans and hope. Then suddenly I was 40. Then 45. And I couldn't remember what those plans even were anymore. My job was routine. Reviewing budgets, coordinating teams, sitting through endless meetings about projects that other people designed. Sometimes I'd see blueprints on someone's desk and feel this ache in my chest. This reminder of what I could have been. But I'd push it down because I had responsibilities, because Rosalia needed stability, because that's what a good man does, right? Can we just pause here for a second? This dude went from designing buildings and dreaming about his own firm to sitting in an office reviewing spreadsheets because his wife told him it was temporary. 23 years of temporary. That word should come with a warning label in marriages, because I swear it's caused more damage than any affair ever has. She told him to shelve his entire identity, and he did it without a fight, because he thought they were building something together. They weren't. She was building the life she wanted, and he was just the guy funding it. All right, keep going. The criticism got worse over the years. Way worse. It wasn't just my clothes or my job anymore. It was everything about me. My body. "You're getting fat, Sebastian. You should take care of yourself." My hair. "You have less hair every day. You look older than you are." The way I talked. "Why do you always tell such boring stories?" At first, I tried to defend myself. Then I tried to change. And then eventually I just stopped trying anything at all. Went silent. Became invisible. Which honestly seemed to be exactly what she wanted. Our conversations got reduced to logistics. "Did you pay the electric bill? What time you getting home? Don't forget my dry cleaning." That was it. That was the whole relationship. She never asked how my day went. Never asked if I was happy. And I don't know, at some point I stopped expecting her to. Because we weren't a couple anymore. We were two strangers sharing a house and a bank account and a last name. I remember this one dinner with her friends. I think it was a Thursday. Wait, no. Friday. Whatever, doesn't matter. Point is, fancy restaurant, the kind with cloth napkins and portions so small you stop at a drive-thru on the way home. Her friend Graciela asked what surprises I had planned for Rosalia. Before I could even open my mouth, Rosalia jumped in. Sebastian isn't one for surprises. He's more of a routine guy. They all laughed. I smiled at my plate and kept eating. In the car after, I told her that comment bothered me. She rolled her eyes so hard I thought they'd get stuck. It was a joke, Sebastian. Now I can't even make jokes. And I went quiet, like always, or like the time her mother came to visit. I'd cleaned the entire house, spent all morning on it, made a nice lunch. During the meal, her mom commented on how good the house looked, and I waited, just waited for Rosalia to mention the effort I'd put in. Instead, she said, "Yes, Mom, I make sure everything stays in order. You know how men are, leave them alone and everything falls apart." Her mother nodded along, and I was sitting right there at that same table, like I was a piece of furniture they were talking around. Thomas was the only one who ever said it straight to my face. We were grabbing lunch one day, this little sandwich place near his office where the guy behind the counter always got your order wrong. No matter how simple it was, I once ordered a turkey club and got a tuna melt. Anyway, Thomas just looked at me and said, "Brother, the way Rosalia talks to you, the way she treats you, it's not normal." I laughed it off, told him all marriages go through rough patches. He looked at me with this sadness in his eyes and didn't say anything else, but I knew what he was thinking. He was thinking I was lying, and he was right. 3 weeks before the party, something happened that should have been the wake-up call. My 51st birthday. A normal day to most people, but I'd always made a big deal out of birthday, hers especially. Parties, gifts, breakfast in bed, the whole thing. That day I waited for her to say happy birthday. A text, a card, anything, nothing. She came home at 9 that night after being out with friends. Didn't mention it, not once, and I said nothing. But that night, laying in bed staring at the dark ceiling, something broke. It wasn't dramatic. I didn't cry or yell. I just felt this deep, heavy silence settle over me. And for the first time in 20-something years, I thought, this has to end. After that night, I started paying attention to things I'd been ignoring for years. Came home early one afternoon and heard her on the phone with her sister in the living room. I stayed in the hallway. "Sometimes I wonder why I'm still with him," she was saying. "He's so predictable, so boring, no spark." My cousin asked how I put up with him, and I told her, "At least he's responsible with money. It's like having a roommate who pays half of everything." I stood there listening to my wife reduce me to a useful appliance, turned around, left the house, walked for 2 hours. When I came back, she acted like nothing happened. "Where were you?" without looking up from her phone. "Walking." "Oh." And that was it. "All right, stop. Can we just sit with that for a second? It's like having a roommate who pays half of everything." She said that. About her husband of 20-plus years, the man who gave up his entire career for her, who changed every single thing about himself trying to make her happy. And she describes him to her own sister like he's a convenient living arrangement. That's not even disrespect at that point. That's someone who has completely dehumanized the person they sleep next to. She doesn't see a husband. She sees a utility bill that walks around the house and occasionally snores. This is why the party scene hits so different, because it wasn't a one-time thing. It was just the first time she did it with witnesses. Back to it. The night of the party came. Rosalia was excited. New gold dress, hours of makeup, the whole production. She spun around in front of me, waiting for a reaction. "How do I look?" I looked at her. She looked good. She'd always been attractive, but I didn't feel anything. Not love, not resentment, just this flat emptiness. "Nice," I said. "That's it. Just nice." Her face hardened. "Sometimes you're unbearable." She left without saying goodbye. I sat on the couch for a long time after, thinking about everything I'd given up, everything I'd lost, wondering who I even was without this woman who'd been defining me for over 2 decades. I didn't have answers, but I wasn't afraid of not having them anymore. I left the house an hour after her, drove calm, no rush, put on music I liked, stuff she always called old people music. There was this one song that came on, a jazz track I hadn't heard since college, and it hit me so hard I almost pulled over, like hearing a voice from a version of myself I thought was dead. I sat at a red light just listening to it, and something in my chest loosened for the first time in years. Then, the tire blew. Halfway to the hotel, I pulled over, looked at the flat, and instead of getting frustrated, I actually laughed. Because of course this would happen tonight. I changed it myself. Took about 40 minutes, got grease everywhere. When I was done, I caught my reflection in the car window, Messy hair, wrinkled shirt, dirty hands, and I thought, yeah, that's about right. That's how I feel on the inside, too. Disheveled, tired, but still here. Arrived at the hotel close to 11, walked in through the side door, and that's when I heard her. I already told you what she was saying. I already told you about the laughing and the clapping and the way my whole body went stiff. But here's the part I haven't told you yet. She kept going. Got worse. Way worse. She started describing my body. He comes with built-in aerodynamics, she said, pointing at her own head, referencing my baldness. And he's got a little belly that grows a bit more every year. It's like a long-term project. You never know how big it's gonna get. People laughing even harder. Some guy in the back yelled, "I'll give you $10, but only with a money-back guarantee." She clapped. "Sorry, no refunds. All sales are final." Then she spotted me. Our eyes met across the room. For 1 second, just one, something like shame crossed her face, but it vanished, replaced by that smile I knew so well. The smile that meant, "Relax, it's just a joke. Don't be dramatic." She leaned into the mic. "There he is, the man of the hour. Sebastian, come up here. People need to see you up close to know if the investment's worth it." Every head in the room turned to look at me. I didn't go to the stage. I walked slowly to an empty table near the front, sat down, crossed my hands, and I just looked at her, calmly, like I was watching a stranger do something embarrassing in public. My buddy Thomas found me a minute later, sat down next to me. "Brother, let's go. You don't have to stay for this." I shook my head. "No, I need to see how far she goes." He stayed. Didn't push it. Rosalia kept at it. "All right, if nobody wants to buy him, I'll give him away free. Actually, I'll pay someone to take him. $52, reverse auction." Some people were still laughing, but a lot of faces had changed. I could see discomfort spreading through the room. People shifting in their chairs, whispering to each other. This has gone too far energy. My assistant Liliana was looking at me with her hand over her mouth. Alonso, the CEO, had his jaw tight, staring at the table. And then something happened that I definitely never saw coming. A woman stood up from a table near the back. Nora, the company's new project director. She'd been there about 6 months. 45 years old, sharp, serious, with a reputation for being brilliant. We'd barely ever talked beyond basic office stuff. She walked toward the stage with these confident, measured steps. Silver gray dress, expression completely calm. The whole room went quiet, just watching her move. Even Rosalia stopped talking. Nora climbed the 3 steps to the stage, held out her hand. "The microphone, please." Rosalia, confused, handed it over without thinking. Nora waited for total silence, then she spoke. Clear voice, zero hesitation. "Good evening, everyone. My name is Nora Herrera. I've been project director here for 6 months, and I'd like to make an offer for Sebastian." Pause. The hall was dead silent. Rosalia looked smug. Clearly thought Nora was going to continue the joke. "Not for the man you've been laughing at tonight, but for the architect none of you ever knew about." The smug look disappeared. "Stop. Just stop for a second." This woman saw what was happening. Watched this dude's wife tear him apart on stage in front of 100 people, and instead of looking away like everyone else did, she stood up. She stood up. And she didn't come with sympathy or some comfort speech. She came with receipts. She came with evidence. She came with the truth that had been buried for 6 years. And she did it on that same stage, into that same microphone, in front of that same crowd. That's not just standing up for someone. That's flipping the entire script in real time. Keep going. This is where it gets really good. Nora explained that when she first started at the company, she'd reviewed all the major projects from the last decade. And she found something interesting about Pacific Towers, the development project that had saved the company from bankruptcy 6 years earlier. The one credited to the chief architect at the time, a guy named Ricardo Fuentes, who got promoted to partner off the back of it. "Ricardo Fuentes didn't design that project," she said. A murmur rippled through the hall. She pulled out her phone. "I found the original files on an old company server. Drafts, emails, documents, all with metadata intact. And every single one of them has the name of the person who actually designed Pacific Towers." She looked directly at me. "Sebastian Mendez, the man his wife just tried to auction off for $50. I couldn't breathe. Thomas grabbed my arm. "Is it true?" he whispered. I nodded. Because it was. Pacific Towers was mine. I was 29 when I designed it. Poured everything I had into it. Every late night, every creative instinct, all of it. And when I showed Fuentes, my boss at the time, he took the whole thing, presented it as his own, won awards for it, got promoted. And I said nothing because Rosalia was pregnant, and I needed that job. And Fuentes was powerful, and who would have believed me over him? By the time she lost the baby, it was already too late. The credit was given. The awards were handed out. History was written without my name in it. Nora kept going. She showed documents on the big screen behind the stage. Original blueprints with my name on them. Emails between me and Fuentes. Dates that proved everything. The CEO Alonso's face went red, because he'd been there when Fuentes got promoted. He'd signed off on it. Then Nora turned to Rosalia, who was still standing on stage looking like the floor had just disappeared underneath her. He would have told the woman who just publicly humiliated him, who constantly called him ugly and boring, who tried to auction him off like trash. He would have trusted his deepest pain to that woman? Rosalia opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Nora addressed the room one more time. She'd sent all the documentation to the board that afternoon, also to some architecture publications, not to destroy the company, but to make sure the truth came out and I got credit for what was mine. Then she got off stage, walked to my table, and offered me her hand. "I'm sorry it had to happen this way," she said quietly. "But when I saw what your wife was doing, I knew it was now or never. Then, you have a lot of talent, Sebastian. If you'll let me, I'd like to talk to you next week about some opportunities." Rosalia came stumbling off the stage, mascara already running. "You never told me about that project. Why didn't you tell me?" I looked at her, really looked at her. For the first time in 23 years, I saw exactly who she was. Not the woman I fell in love with, the real person underneath. "I did tell you, 6 years ago. I came home destroyed and told you Fuentes took my work. You know what you said? You told me to stop being dramatic, that I should be lucky to have a job, that if the design was really that good, they would have given me credit." Her eyes went wide. She remembered. "It's not that I didn't tell you, Rosalia. It's that you didn't care enough to remember." I stood up. Thomas stood up with me. "I'm leaving. Not home. There's no home for me there anymore." She grabbed my arm. "You can't leave me like this. It was a joke. I didn't mean it. Please." I pulled away. "Yeah, you did. You've meant it for years. Only difference is tonight you did it with witnesses." I looked around the room. Everyone watching. Total silence. "Thanks for coming. Hope you enjoyed the show. Happy New Year." Walked out with Thomas on one side and Nora a few steps behind. I heard Rosalia yell my name, but I didn't stop. Didn't turn around. Because for the first time in 23 years, I was walking forward. The cold air hit my face when I stepped outside. Almost midnight. Music and noise muffled behind the glass doors. All of that was behind me now. Thomas asked if I was okay. I stopped next to my car. Looked at my hands. Still had grease on them from the tire. "I don't know," I said. "I don't know what I feel. I just know I'm not going back." Nora caught up and told me she'd been working on something. An independent architecture firm. Residential design. Exactly the kind of work I used to do before I got shoved into that admin office. She wanted a partner. Someone with vision and talent. She'd found my old files and knew it was me. But she didn't know how to approach me until tonight forced her hand. I told her I needed time. She said, "Take all the time you need," gave me her card. Thomas and I left. His wife had the guest room ready. Clean towels, spare clothes, a hug at the door. "Tomorrow everything will look different," she said. I laid in that bed, first night in 23 years without Rosalia beside me, and instead of feeling lonely, I felt something I hadn't felt in forever. Space. Space to breathe. Space to think. Space to just exist without someone constantly reminding me that my existence was inconvenient. I'm not gonna lie. The Nora thing is my favorite part of this whole story, because she didn't just defend him, she armed him. She gave him back the one thing Rosalia and that company had stolen from him, proof that he was actually somebody, that his work mattered, that he wasn't just the boring bald guy in the admin office. He was the architect behind the project that literally saved the company, and she did it in front of the same crowd that was laughing at him 5 minutes earlier. If that's not the greatest plot twist at a New Year's party, I don't know what is. All right, let's wrap this up. Rosalia called 17 times the first day, 32 texts, all variations of, "I'm sorry, I was just joking, please come home." I didn't answer any of them, not a single one. Second day, she showed up at Thomas's house crying in the driveway. He went out and talked to her while I watched from the upstairs window. She was pointing at the house, gesturing, doing the whole performance, like I was something that belonged to her and she just wanted it returned to its proper shelf. Thomas shook his head over and over until she finally got back in her car and left. Third day, her messages did a complete 180, went from apologies to accusations. I was a coward. I was overreacting. I'd ruined her reputation. I had publicly humiliated her. The irony of that last text almost made me laugh. Almost. Blocked her number that afternoon. The silence that followed was honestly one of the best things I've ever experienced in my life. Hired a lawyer on day 4. Woman named Liliana. Short gray hair, no-nonsense energy. The kind of person who's seen the worst versions of people and nothing surprises her anymore. When I told her about the auction, she leaned back in her chair and just stared at me for a second. "Videos?" she asked. I told her someone had recorded the whole thing. That makes things considerably easier. Filed for divorce. The process moved fast. Between the video evidence and witness testimony about years of this kind of treatment, Rosalia's lawyer basically told her to take a settlement and move on. House sold, profits split, bank accounts separated, clean, final, done. Monday morning, I walked back into the office. Kept my head up like Thomas told me to. The security guard gave me this look, half pity, half curiosity, and I could feel eyes following me down the hallway, conversations stopping when I walked by. The thing is, I didn't care, not even a little. I'd spent 23 years being invisible, and now everybody wanted to stare? Let them stare. The CEO, Alonzo, called me up to his office that morning, offered me a promotion, director of architectural design, my own department, creative control, triple the salary. 6 years ago, I would have fallen out of my chair hearing those words. But sitting in that office, looking at this man who'd let my work get stolen and never asked a single question about it, I felt absolutely nothing. I appreciate it, I said, but I'm going to decline. I don't want to belong to a place that only noticed my value after a public scandal, where nobody fought for me for 6 years until someone else had to do it at a New Year's party. His face went blank. You already have something else lined up? I have something better. I have a chance to build something that's actually mine, something nobody can take from me. I submitted my resignation. 2 weeks' notice, left clean. Called Nora that afternoon. I accept your offer. Let's build this thing. We rented a small space, 2 offices and a shared area. Designed our logo ourselves on a Saturday afternoon with takeout containers spread across the floor. Registered the name, Herrera and Mendez Architects. I remember standing outside the building after the sign went up, staring at it for probably 10 minutes. Seeing my last name up there, equal partner, made me feel something I hadn't felt in decades. Actual pride. Not the fake kind you perform for other people. The quiet kind that just sits in your chest. First projects were small. A house renovation here, a boutique office there. Nothing flashy, but I designed each one with everything I had. All the creativity that had been locked in a drawer for 6 years poured out like a dam breaking. I'd stay late at the studio sketching until my hand cramped, and it felt good. Not like the late nights at the old company reviewing someone else's spreadsheets. This was different. This was mine. Clients loved the work. Photos started circulating online. Our reputation grew slow but steady. Thomas came by the studio at least twice a week just to check in. He'd sit in the corner eating whatever he'd picked up from the place next door, usually something with too much hot sauce, and just watch me work. Never said much, just being there. That's the kind of friend he is. 3 months in, I got a letter from the National Association of Architects officially recognizing me as the original designer of Pacific Towers. Formal apology for the error. Invitation to receive a retroactive award at their annual ceremony. I stared at that letter for a long time, sitting at my desk. It wasn't happiness exactly. It was something heavier and quieter than that. Closure. Validation. Proof that I hadn't imagined any of it. That my work had been real. That I had been real. My divorce was finalized in March. I got the signed papers at my new apartment, a 1-bedroom place near the center of town. Open kitchen, big windows, nothing fancy at all. But mine. Completely mine. I remember sitting at my kitchen table with that document in front of me. 23 years. Officially over. And I didn't feel sadness. I felt this relief so deep, it almost made me dizzy. Like taking off a coat you didn't realize weighed 40 pounds until the second you dropped it. I started doing things I'd stopped allowing myself to do years ago. Joined a gym. Not because someone told me to lose weight, but because I wanted to feel strong. Lost some weight gradually. Bought clothes I actually liked without worrying if someone else would approve. Decorated my apartment with stuff I chose, not stuff someone else decided looked right. Cooked whatever I wanted for dinner, even if it was just eggs and toast at 11 at night because I could. These were small freedoms, but they added up to something that felt massive. Heard rumors about Rosalia through the grapevine. The video from the party had circulated, and she'd lost most of her friend group over it. Her family was embarrassed. She'd moved to another city. Part of me, the part that had loved her a long time ago, felt something when I heard all that. But it was distant, like reading a sad headline about someone you don't know. It wasn't my problem anymore. A year after that night, I was standing in the doorway of our own studio. Not the tiny rental we started in. A real space with big windows that let in natural light, drawing tables, a meeting room with a view of the city. Herrera and Mendez Architects had grown faster than either of us expected. 6 employees, 3 major projects under development, a waiting list of clients. Nora walked in that morning with 2 cups of coffee and this huge grin on her face. They just contacted us about the city's new cultural complex. Direct competition against 5 major firms, including your old company. I laughed. That's ironic. That's justice, she said. And we're gonna win. 3 weeks later, we presented our proposal and we won. The awards ceremony was in November. I wore a new suit, dark gray, fit me right. First suit I'd bought for myself in over a decade that I actually liked wearing. When they called my name, I went up on stage calmly. No nerves, no shaking hands. Just this deep, settled peace I can't really explain. I said a few words about Pacific Towers, about the 6 years of silence, about having my work credited to someone else. And I said, those years taught me that talent without self-respect is empty and that it's never too late to reclaim who you really are. Standing ovation. Thomas in the front row with tears running down his face, Nora smiling next to him. That night I stood in front of my bathroom mirror, looked at the man looking back, 52 years old, less hair than before, more gray, deeper wrinkles, but also something different. Something in the eyes that hadn't been there for a very long time. A steadiness, a calm. I thought about Rosalia, about the auction, about $50, and I laughed. Because for 23 years I'd believed I was worth what she told me I was worth. That my price was whatever she decided it was. But I was wrong. Everybody was wrong. Because I was never for sale. I just needed to remember that. I still have her emerald ring. The one she left behind when we split up the house. It's in a drawer in my desk at the studio. Haven't decided what to do with it. Thomas says throw it out. Nora says donate it. I'll probably do one of those eventually, just not today. And that, folks, is where he leaves it. 23 years of being made to feel like nothing. 23 years of hearing he was boring and ugly and worthless from the person who was supposed to love him more than anyone. And what finally broke it? A microphone, a stage, and $50. She put a price tag on him in front of 100 people, and the universe said, nah, let me show you what this man is actually worth. He's got his own firm now, his name on awards, his designs getting built. And the woman who tried to auction him off for $50? She moved to a different city because she couldn't show her face anymore. You really do love to see it. So tell me, what would you have done standing in that doorway? Would you have gone up on stage? Would you have walked out? And what about that ring in the desk drawer? Keep it, toss it, or donate it? Drop it in the comments. Hit subscribe if this one got you. This has been Clay. Peace. Been Clay. Peace. Been Clay. Peace. Been Clay. Peace.